I'd say we were all pretty close in age because, we were all in college right about the same time and also getting out. But back in 2005, I was at the beach. It was right around July 4th, and a good friend of mine who was a SEAL on SEAL Team 1 called me up and was like, hey, how you doing? Happy 4th. And we got to talking, and it turns out that some of his buddies that he was in BUDS and the SEALs with were downrange in Afghanistan, and one of them was missing. Well, several of them were missing. That turned out to be Marcus Luttrell and Lieutenant Michael Murphy. So fast forward to 2007, another friend that I knew through my buddy Troy invited me to the Medal of Honor ceremony in Washington, D.C. For Lieutenant Michael Murphy. So that day in October 2007, I went to the third of the 3 ceremonies that day. The first one's at the White House, second one is at the Pentagon, and later that evening was at the Navy Memorial outside in D.C. I sat 2 chairs away from Heather Murphy, Michael Murphy's widow. I listened to Marcus Luttrell talk about the tremendous sacrifice his friends made. I shook hands with Daniel Murphy, his father, and his mother, Maureen Murphy, gave me a hug.
Welcome to the Transition Drill Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Pantiani. I appreciate you taking the time to watch, so let's get into this. Ironman triathlons.
Yes.
You've done 4.
I've done 4.
Which was your first?
My first was Ironman Florida back in
a very hilly
2000.
Course.
Different kind of hill.
The overpasses.
The grade of the road, rough grading, and then wind is your hill.
How'd you get into triathlon?
You know what? I had played a lot of team sports growing up, and I forget when it was. It was like maybe my freshman or sophomore year of college. I saw the Ironman triathlon in Kona, Hawaii on TV, and, NBC does a great job of pulling at all the heartstrings and the things that would motivate you to do something like that. And, I just wondered, is it possible? And I kind of sought out mentors and people who were swimmers and runners and learned from them on how to train.
The reason why I'm asking is because I've got 1 under my belt. I don't have 4. I got 1 under my belt. I got New Zealand done in 2003.
That's awesome.
Crazy to think that it's going to be 20 years next year. But unfortunately, life, family, kids kind of gets in the way of finding the time to adequately train.
Absolutely.
Definitely miss it, though. It was definitely a fun time in my life. And maybe one of these years I'll kind of work my way back around to it. But that's what I wanted to kind of hit on you, is like what brought you to triathlon. So let's go backwards a little bit. Where'd you grow up?
I was born Omaha, Nebraska, to Filipino immigrant parents, and how we ended up in Nebraska is a whole nother story. But around the age of 13, my dad was a mechanical engineer, and the company he was working for at the time offered to move him to Northern Virginia, and he asked us what we wanted to do, and it was going to be a big change because we had a lot of extended family in Omaha, Nebraska. But he, my sister and myself said, let's go. Let's give it a try. I'm glad we did it.
And so you were 13 when you moved to Virginia?
Yes.
And at that point in time, what was your life like? Were you active in sports, a good student?
I've always been an okay student. I think even though I never got
I'll put myself in that same category.
Even though I never got diagnosed with it, I swear I'm ADHD. I just, and later when we talk about all the things that I'm into, you'll understand why. So sitting in a classroom for extended periods of time it's not my jam. It's not what I learned. But yeah, we were, playing sport. I started playing Pee Wee football. I was playing soccer. I didn't really know what I loved growing up athletically, but I just knew I loved being outside and I loved playing. So,
what were your aspirations for adult life after high school? Was it, obviously, we'll get to this because you came into the military kind of late, but what were you thinking was going to be adult life for you?
I really did not know. I should have probably gone into the military first rather than college, but coming from that area in Northern Virginia, DC area, I mean, there's no military connection there at all. Yeah. I mean, you're in high school with, the sons and daughters of some really smart and well-educated individuals. So college is just a natural transition for everybody in that area, But honestly, I really did not know what I was interested in. I went to college because that's what everybody else was doing. I was interested in rugby because that's what I was playing at the time in high school, and kind of following my friends to one of the colleges that they were going to also play rugby with them, and then figure it out later.
What did you start studying when you first got into college?
I was just general education at the time, but my freshman year at Radford University, my first rugby game against the University of Maryland, I broke my left arm. Got carried off the field, ended up having a plate and 6 screws. It was the first broken bone I'd ever have, and it was definitely a major injury. And but throughout that process, I started going to physical therapy, kind of learned about that occupation, what that was all about, and found a real interest in that because I'd always been interested in the body and working out, especially, as a smaller athlete. I was always having to hit the weight room or train a little bit harder to even myself on the playing field. And I love physical therapy because it blended a lot of the worlds that I liked with knowledge about the human body and training, but also helping people get better.
Did you end up pursuing that path then or change to that path?
I did. So I studied kinesiology, sports medicine at Radford, and then ended up doing an internship at a hospital. And while I was already graduated at the time back in Northern Virginia, and while I was doing my internship, a friend that I had started training with for cycling, getting into triathlons, invited me, to check out this new gym that was opening up in Vienna, Virginia. And I ended up becoming a personal trainer over there. And I started to love the personal trainer aspect because I was able to get to people before they got injured.
So almost kind of getting ahead of the injuries as opposed to dealing with them on the back end.
Absolutely.
And so how long did the personal training venture take you?
I did that for, boy, it's going to get embarrassing getting into my age now.
I'm still older than you, so don't worry about it.
I did that for a solid 10 years. I was personal training, and our gym was right off of the W&OD trail in Virginia, which is 60-mile running trail, bike path. So it's a triathlete's dream. Is literally I could just go right outside of the gym, hop on the trail for a run or a ride anytime I wanted to.
Of the 3 sports, which was your weakest?
I was a weak swimmer starting out. I did not know anything about swim technique. I thought swimming was just about fitness. It took
you and everybody else who gets in the water for the first time.
Right. It really took a mentor, and during college summers, I had started lifeguarding in Ocean City, Maryland, and I met a gentleman by the name of Wes Smith, and he was like the lifeguard of all lifeguards, blonde hair, tan, could outrun, outswim everybody. And I sought him out. I wanted to be him. So he taught me some swim techniques, gave me some drills to do, and I took those drills, learned more about it from other people, got more data points, and I just ran away with it. I realized that was the key to success.
I remember when I was getting into it, the swimming part was accidental. And what I mean by that is I've always been involved in cycling. I wanted to get into running, and I was developing some running injuries. And so a friend of mine who was doing triathlons and actually at that time preparing for Ironman Australia said, get in the water and you're a triathlete. And so I just literally went headlong into swimming, but the exact same thing. I sought out the advice of people who knew what they were doing. And the one thing that just sticks out in my head that I remember from back then was being told, it's just like golf. Get from A to B in the least amount of strokes. It's not about the maximum number of strokes. And that was really a game changer for me in the water. And so, it quickly became one of my stronger events because being bigger, running and cycling don't go together.
Absolutely. That's funny you put the analogy with golf, because I think there's a lot of similarities, and not in the sport, but in the technique and driven aspect of it.
So you're now 10 years into it. What brings you to the military, what would be considered later in life?
Well, during college summers, when I was lifeguarding in Ocean City, Maryland, my friends at that time, we were all kind of like, hey, we're getting out of college soon. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And a few of my friends were looking at going into the military, not just the regular military. They were looking at special operations jobs, Navy SEALs, PJ, Green Beret, things like that. And it just so happened that several of my friends went into the Navy to become SEALs. And I always was curious about it, followed their paths. Whenever they came back in town, we always got together and swapped stories. I was always training for the next Ironman or triathlon season, going on surf trips. And, these guys were telling me all about their training and how difficult and how challenging it was. So there were a lot of similarities between training for an Ironman and also training for a job in special operations.
Definitely a lot of time in the water.
Yeah, for sure.
Was there a significant age difference between you and your circle of friends?
I'd say we were all pretty close in age, because, we were all in college right about the same time and also getting out. But back in 2005, I was at the beach. It was right around July 4th, and a good friend of mine who was a SEAL on SEAL Team 1 called me up and was like, hey, how you doing? Happy 4th. And we got to talking, and it turns out that some of his buddies that he was in BUDS and the SEALs with were downrange in Afghanistan, and one of them was missing. Well, several of them were missing. That turned out to be Marcus Luttrell and Lieutenant Michael Murphy. So fast forward to 2007, another friend that I knew through my buddy Troy invited me to the Medal of Honor ceremony in Washington, D.C. For Lieutenant Michael Murphy. So that day in October 2007, I went to the third of the three ceremonies that day. The first one's at the White House, second one is at the Pentagon, and later that evening, was at the Navy Memorial outside in D.C. I sat 2 chairs away from Heather Murphy, Michael Murphy's widow. I listened to Marcus Luttrell talk about the tremendous sacrifice his friends made. I shook hands with Daniel Murphy, his father, and his mother, Maureen Murphy, gave me a hug.
That'd be very powerful for you.
Yeah.
Were you already thinking about going in at that point in time?
You know what? I was always interested in it, but for different reasons. I was interested in it because of the physical challenge. it gives people. I was my thoughts about serving my country. Obviously, that was in the back of my head, but that wasn't the reason I was interested in the beginning. After going to that Medal of Honor ceremony, that's when my aperture opened up.
Really got solidified?
Yes. Just learning about somebody whose dedication to service his friends and his country was greater than himself, and somebody whose moral compass was true north.
You mentioned, so you're first generation in the U.S., correct?
Yes.
Did you have any military relations, family, friends growing up to be kind of a mentor or somebody to pull on, other than the friends that you developed later in life?
Yeah, I had an uncle who was a Navy chief. They were in San Diego for most of the time while I was growing up. Ended up coming to Omaha, Nebraska as a recruiter. And then I had a couple of uncles that were in the Air Force, but nobody who done any work in special operations or seen any time in combat.
So when you made the decision to go in, was 2007?
Well, 2007 was when the seed was planted, and it just so happened that the friend that I went with to that ceremony, who was an active duty SEAL, was stationed in Virginia Beach, was getting orders to go to BUD/S to become an instructor.
So when did you actually make the decision, like, okay, this is the path I'm going to take?
It was in 2008. So the following year. And, I had contacted my friend who had now PCS to San Diego and was a BUD/S instructor. And I said, okay, I can't stop thinking about this. I can't look at myself in the mirror the same way anymore. I have to give this a shot. Can I get an age waiver? And he said, no problem. I gotcha.
And we've alluded to this. So How old were you actually when you enlisted?
I was 31.
Definitely at the older end of the spectrum, I would imagine, especially with the intention of going the Special Forces route.
Yes.
And so you opted to go in the Navy, immediately into BUD/S?
Immediately.
Or into that pipeline?
On the SEAL Challenge contract.
And what ended up happening with that?
Went to boot camp, BUD/S prep. I was old man, Papa J, a lot of different terms of endearment by my younger peers. It was a great time. Got to BUD/S here in San Diego, and it was hard. The days were grueling, but I always thought cold was going to be the thing that was going to be my nemesis. I actually did really well in the cold, despite being lower on the body fat end of things. But what really got me was that first night into day of Hell Week. I think my body just had not recovered from the previous 3 weeks, plus the weeks on top of that where you're not even in BUD/S, but you're getting beat. You're doing a lot of physical stuff, training before it. And the one thing that I thought was going to carry me through, my legs, and it was a running evolution. We're doing boats on heads on the base side of Naval Amphibious Base there in Coronado, and I just could not keep up with my boat crew anymore. Fell out from under the boat several times. In my heart, I wanted to be there, didn't want to quit. Body was definitely betraying me, and it's funny because I see a lot of people now that talk about the mental aspect of going through BUD/S, and 100%, that is a huge, huge thing that you need to wrap your head around and be a master of. But you can't just exist, when you go into BUD/S. You have to perform. You can't. I also hear a lot of people say that you can just, it's made for any average male to be able to get through this program. Yeah, I don't believe in that either, because I look at the people that I was surrounded with. we had Golden Gloves boxers. We had people who had played professional sports, swimming. We had, state wrestling champions, varsity water polo, collegiate water polo players. They were studs.
But also younger men. I mean,
younger.
31 is definitely not old in the grand scheme of things, but I would imagine for that, you've had quite a few laps around the sun at that point in time. And something I was thinking about is going back to your triathlon days, were you injury-free coming in, or had you dealt with any significant injuries from all of that training?
I think it's pretty hard to train for an Ironman consecutively for 10 years and get away scot-free. You're always going to have some kind of overuse injury, but I never had anything that plagued me.
So there wasn't anything in the back of your head kind of going into it going, oh, you know what, that left hamstring always goes out on me, or something to that effect?
No. I for a long time, I thought about that night. It haunted me for sure, to my core. And now I'm at peace with it because I've gone on and realized that I don't need to have a trident to do great things in my life. But at that time, for several years, I could not stop thinking about, willingly standing in front of that instructor, ringing the bell 3 times. That was difficult.
There's something has to be said, though, for putting your toes on the line and at least giving it a go, as opposed to never giving it a try and then always wondering what if.
Absolutely.
For going back and kind of throwing out some advice, if somebody's listening who's in that late 20s, maybe coming to that point of needing to get an age waiver, what advice, if you could give yourself advice back then, would you give someone?
I would say, really understand what everybody is saying about the mental side of going through buds. But also, I think before you even get there, you need to have tested yourself in some way, like pushed yourself, or somebody pushed you to the brink physically, to the point of exhaustion and beyond, and really know what's inside. Because I saw, it's crazy. You go there and, I'm 5'7". I was probably 145 soaking wet at that time. And, I saw guys that looked like they were professional football players or could fight at the heavyweight in the UFC. And you're like, that guy is definitely going to be a SEAL. But then on day one, when he quits because the surf's too cold, or he can't get around an obstacle on the O course, that's really what it comes down to.
And I keep circling back around to this because I think of my experience doing an Ironman triathlon. And I remember going into it telling myself 13 hours was my goal. And New Zealand was an out and back on the run. So basically 4 10Ks, for no better way to explain it. And I remember being at the 12-hour mark on my last turnaround and basically saying, okay. And at that point in time, I was already walk running because I'd done something to my foot. And I remember having that thought in my head of, well, if I'm damaging my foot, oh, well, I'm this far into it. And I just started running and ultimately made it. I'm not trying to equate that with SEAL training or BUDS training, but you did push yourself, I'm sure, to levels of exhaustion. Do you think that you didn't push yourself enough doing Ironmans?
No, I definitely did because
I'm thinking every one of us is bonked at least once to where you're just completely trashed.
100%. I mean, it took me 4 races to get an Ironman right, because I was always going out too hard, especially on the bike. The bike was, I was solid on the bike. That was a strength of mine. But thinking that you can ride hard for 112 miles, then follow that up with a decent marathon where you're running the whole time, not walking, is a difficult thing to do. So it wasn't till after the third one that I realized that I was not doing things the right way. And I thought I had all the knowledge. I had the books and stuff online. I had never hired the services of a coach, but I finally sought one out, and it was the best thing that I did for myself.
Did you do different events, all 4 of them, or did you ever do a repeat?
I never repeated. So the last one I did was Ironman Louisville. The race before that was Ironman Canada when it was still in Penticton, British Columbia.
Did you end up having to go up the year before to register, or were you able to register online?
I was able to register online, and I'm not exactly sure how I got in that one, but I do remember I had some clients that would go to my gym that had they were building a vineyard in Penticton, so that was the motivation to go up there and to do it and to stay with them.
And what year was that?
That was, I think that was 2007.
Okay, so about 4 years after I did mine, because when I was deep in that world, I remember people would fly up for X year's race, let's say 2007's race, because it filled up so quickly to be there and register for the following year. But obviously you were able to get around that. So, good luck, or good on you for that.
Yeah. Going back to the power of having a mentor and a coach. So I went 11:30 at Ironman Canada.
Very nice.
The following race at Ironman Louisville, I went 10:40.
Even better.
That's the power of having a mentor and a coach.
But you definitely devoted your entire life to training for that. You're pretty much, that was your job to get to those numbers.
Yes.
Because my 13 hours, I still balanced a 40-hour law enforcement job, and the only thing was I did it pre-children. But I had a buddy of mine who went in the 11s, and just the level of training and commitment to diet and everything else, you would think that he was training for a marathon and I was training for a 5K. It was just so different.
Right.
So back to your military time. You ultimately stayed in for 11 years?
Yes.
When you got to that point, why not just do a career?
I never wanted to do a career. I wanted to, the memories of 9/11 were still fresh in my head. In fact, that day on 9/11, I was training for Ironman Hawaii. I just ridden my bike past the Potomac, past the Pentagon. When I got back to my gym, all eyes were on the TV, and the Pentagon was hit soon after that. I'll never forget that day. Sorry. Go ahead.
We were just talking about your decision. You knew going in that was not going to be a career for you, but you ended up doing 11 years. And the reason why I ask is people kind of talk about when you cross that 10-year mark, it's already like, okay, might as well stick it out and do the full 20.
Yeah, I like I said, I never intended to do a full career. I wanted to go there. I wanted to fight terrorism. I wanted to stick up for people who couldn't stick up for themselves. I wanted to follow, the Michael Murphy path, right? And that true north. And, I wanted to test myself and put myself in an uncomfortable situations. And, I think people, because I always hear guys like, I know I was going to do it. I was going to enlist and try, and they never did it, and I think there's a fear there of relinquishing control of your life, right? When you go into the military, it's, you sign that dotted line. It's like they own you. And that's really the fear, right? Not the fear of going and trying. It's the fear of giving your life and your freedoms for a greater good and to somebody else who has say in that now.
So to get to the 11-year mark, was it, for no better terms, a reevaluation each? Well, how many enlistments did you end up doing?
I did 2 enlistments.
So I guess what I'm saying is you stayed in the special operations community though through your entire 11 years, correct?
No, so after quitting Buds, this is dark days for a lot of guys that don't make it. You're the needs of the Navy, and it is a scary and uncomfortable feeling. Going over to North Island, your dreams and hopes have just been crushed, and you go to a detailer that really does not care about what you just went through. And you sit down with them, and whatever comes up on the screen that you qualified for your ASVAB or that particular day are the choices that you get.
Did you do decent on your ASVAB?
I did great on my ASVAB.
So that definitely had a benefit to you then, I would imagine.
Yes. I was lucky that aircrew popped up on the screen. I was like, I don't know what that is, but that sounds way better than bosun's mate. So give me that. Ended up going to Pensacola, Florida for Naval Air Crewman Training School, and in Jacksonville also for additional fleet replacement training. And then my first duty station was in Hawaii with Patrol Squadron 4 as a flight engineer on the P-3 Charlie Orion maritime patrol aircraft.
So when you got to the end of that first enlistment, what kept you in?
I honestly was going to get out. I desperately wanted to come back to special warfare to get another shot. I would have loved another shot at Buds, but there were so many people coming in on that SEAL Challenge contract at the time, and a lot of new guys in the teams that weren't getting out. So my year was completely booked. They weren't taking anybody back. I looked into EOD, and had started training with those guys that were in Hawaii. And they were the same story. They're like, sorry, we got too many guys. There's no billets available. And then I found out about this program flying unmanned aircraft for Naval Special Warfare mission sets, SEAL teams, and sought out the command that was recruiting for that. Went to a couple of recruiting briefs and said, well, this is probably going to be my best shot at getting back into the community.
Was that kind of dangled as a carrot to keep you in, or did you get that and then decide to stay in?
I was coming up to the end of my first enlistment, and I was on deployment. I was in Sigonella, Italy, with my squadron at the time, and I had not been screened positively yet to be able to go do this by the command. And I told my detailer, I told my command, I was like, well, I'm getting out if, I'm going to go do other things in my life if I can't go do this, because I don't want to stay in the Navy for 20 years or for another enlistment. It was just lucky that I did screen positive. I was picked up by that command, and I re-enlisted soon after that while I was on deployment.
And was that what you finished out your career with?
Yes.
So when you finally realized, all right, I've done enough, I'm 11 years into this, I'm getting out, did you have a plan for your exit or what you were going to do post-military?
I always felt like I needed to go back for more education, because my undergrad education was so specific in scope that, unless you're going to be an athletic trainer, a physical therapist, a personal trainer, there's not really a whole lot that can transfer into a different profession. So I felt like I needed to go back to school, and just from everybody that I had talked to that had gotten an MBA, I felt it was a great way to encapsulate kind of all of the different things that you learn in the military and translate it into the business world.
So did you immediately go into school straight up, like as soon as you came out, just immediately back into college?
Yes. Got out at the end of 2019. COVID happened pretty soon after that. I was at Pepperdine on their virtual learning platform as an MBA student there.
What made you choose Pepperdine?
I was looking at USC and other schools, but Pepperdine kept calling me, and they really wanted me. And even though I had the GI Bill, they tried to offer me a scholarship, and I was like, well, I don't think I can use both. And I just felt welcome there.
Did they? What I was getting at was there an on-scene or an on-school veterans group program that was drawing you there, or did they not offer that?
They didn't offer that, and I didn't really know of any veterans who'd gone through the program until I got in the program and met a few people. But like I said, just having somebody say that, we really want you here. We like your background. We like what you have to say, and bring to the program. So, and
then was that your catalyst to get into the investment world and the real estate world?
At the same time, I knew I had all these tools that the military had provided me that I was not taking advantage of. And, I had friends that have done very well in real estate using their VA loan. And so I started to seek out all these veterans who were doing that, and just would ask them to have a cup of coffee with me and tell me about their experience. And I just started realizing that the more I talked about it, the more all my veteran friends were trying to do the same thing. So I said, hey, why don't we form a little meetup group, and once a month we get together and we provide motivation, network, resources for each other, and we can all learn together.
I'm assuming all based here in the San Diego area?
All based here in San Diego.
Taking it back a step just a little bit, when you actually discharged and you're now back out in the civilian world, an easy transition for you, or did you kind of have some dark times?
I'm so blessed to, the space we're in at the Honor Foundation here in Sorrento Valley in San Diego. Can't say enough about this program. I would have been more lost, way more lost, without the help and the resources of this program right here.
And I definitely wanted to get into that. Yeah. So the Honor Foundation, did you find it before you exited the military or afterwards?
I found it before.
So were you already engaged with the group or the foundation at your discharge?
So I got out in December 2019. I had finished with the 12 weeks of the Honor Foundation at the end of November.
So for those that don't know about it, explain what the Honor Foundation is, what they do, what services they provide to veterans.
The Honor Foundation is a transition program for veterans from the special operations community, and it provides transition assistance, resources, not just for them, for their families, and not just while you're in the program. It really is a tribe that continues to provide, long after you've already graduated the program. But what's the real beauty about this program is that it's not focused just on the what, the job, the making enough money you want, living where you want to live. They're focused on trying to figure out, after all this time in service, what are you passionate about? What are you interested in doing? What are some of the skills that you bring outside of the military that are going to help our communities, lead other people. And that's the beauty of this program is the first 3 weeks you start out with why. Forming your why, telling your story, figuring out what you can take from the military and the lessons that you learn, the experiences that you've had throughout your life, and now carry that mission into a different chapter of your life.
You mentioned COVID, but barring COVID, are these meetings in person?
Yes, in person, typically 2 nights a week. You come in and you have a casual dinner. A lot of the fellows also, they're coaches. Everybody is assigned a coach, a mentor. And these are mentors and coaches. They coach Fortune 500 C-suite executives doing this just because they want to be involved in the program. And then each...
Not necessarily prior military people.
No, a lot who are not prior military. And then there's a class. The class is very interactive. The guest speakers are different every time. Each week, each session builds one on top of the other. And the first 3 weeks are your why. The next block of the program is your how, your tools to help you get there. So mock interviews, rewriting your resume, LinkedIn profiles, being more comfortable engaging people who are out of the military, who don't share the same interests, experiences, likes.
So it sounds, from the little bit that I know of it, it's kind of like the TAPS program on steroids almost.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My experience with the TAPS program is it really is what-based. It's, the career, what you're going to do, about the things that the military provided now that you don't have that. And while that's great, I wish more people getting out from not just special operations had the opportunity to be able to go through Honor Foundation or programs similar to it.
Going back to TAPS, though, you mentioned that your goal was to simply go back to school. Did you have a career in mind? Because what I've heard from people is they go through the TAPS program, but so many of them are I'm just done. I just want to be out of the military, and I know I got to sit in this chair and check the box. Were you kind of in that same point when you were going through TAPS?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was there with other guys from the special operations community, and, nobody really wanted to be there. I was lucky that I did have some things that I wanted to do. I wanted to go back to school. I had some careers in mind that I think that I would fit well doing. It's funny, everybody coming out of special operations thinks that they're being great at program management until you figure out what program management actually is. And then that's a deciding point of whether or not you want to do that.
So what's in your future, do you think?
Boy, I'm doing a lot now. But one of my things that I'm extremely passionate about is every time I create an opportunity for myself, it's a learning point for me, right? It's a data point for me to be able to talk to another veteran who's getting out going, hey, I went down that path. Here's what I've learned from it. I'm huge on, a lot of people call it paying it forward. I call it sending the elevator back down.
Are you doing that independently or as a direct member of the Honor Foundation?
Both. Just because of some of the things that I've done as, forming the real estate meetup group, organizing the Swim for SOF, which benefits the Honor Foundation, people have sought me out through LinkedIn or other channels as a veteran and wanted to connect with me. And, not every conversation, it leads to, hey, I know somebody who's in that industry. Maybe it's just trying to figure out life or feel like part of a tribe again.
Well, that's the important thing is maintaining that sense of tribe, that sense of community of like-minded people to help you keep moving forward. If somebody's coming out of the military, can they get involved in your real estate meetup group and not be part of the Honor Foundation?
Absolutely. The real estate meetup group is called the Legacy Group. We're going through a little bit of a transition because I did it for a year and I wanted to figure out a way to scale it to make it better in year 2. So I've partnered up with another veteran active duty officer who is just absolutely crushing it in real estate with his VA loan and has gone on to do many things, including start a podcast about real estate. So we're partnering there. It is it's still a little bit of a work in progress, so I'm not quite ready to announce it. But if you follow me on social media, you'll see it eventually.
You mentioned the Swim for SOF. That event goes off when?
This year it's going to be Saturday, September 17th.
And how far of a swim? If people want, obviously it's open to anybody who wants to participate. It doesn't have to be former military.
Does not have to be former military. You just need to know the challenge that you're facing. This is not an easy swim. It is a 3.3 mile swim that starts in Glorieta Bay in Coronado.
Former Ironman.
And goes all the way to the USS Midway. But there's a stop in between at the 1 mile point at Tidelands Park where we complete a tribute workout, which is 22 pull-ups and 100 push-ups for fallen teammates, as well as veterans who have committed suicide.
And to register for that event, is there a website for it?
Yes, if you go to honor.org, you can you'll see it on the website, and there'll be a link to register, whether you want to swim, volunteer, or come to the awesome post-event after party. We have a silent auction there it was such an overwhelming success last year. To organize something on that magnitude where you've done Ironman, I mean, even as a participant, you can see the logistics involved.
Yes.
In trying to put together, something that's covering so much ground, right? It was a challenge, but we hit a home run in year 0, which we set the bar probably too high. So, but that's a good problem to have.
Is there a similar event on the East Coast each year?
There is the SEAL swim, and I did that 2 years ago. A friend of mine had done it the previous year and was talking about it. I'd seen some footage on social media, and I just said, that's awesome. It's a fundraiser, and you go swim a major tributary in New York City, And my first thought was not how dirty the water is. My first thought was, how do I sign up? And so my buddy put me in contact with the race director, Bill Brown, over there. And those guys at GI Go Fund run an amazing event, amazing program. It definitely inspired the vision for the Swim for SOF.
And the money all comes back for your event. Comes back to the Honor Foundation or its own separate charity?
It goes directly to the Honor Foundation.
And then ultimately to help veterans.
It goes to this program. All the leaders, all the coaches, people involved in this program, they have careers here too.
Correct.
And the campuses that we have now in San Diego, Virginia Beach, Camp Lejeune, virtual campus, more campuses are more brick and mortar campuses will be popping up in the future, and that's going to allow more veterans to be able to experience this program live.
Do you see more of these swims occurring in other parts of the country?
Absolutely. There seems to be a little trend going on. We got a little competition with the East Coast. They have 3. In fact, my friend Jeff Leard, who is a event director for the Boston Frogman Swim, I'll be doing that in June 12th. He came last year to do the swim for SOF. Had an amazing time. So I owe him one.
So, starting to get towards the end of wrapping this up, what advice would you say from your experience and anybody who's looking to transition out of the military, that from your experience?
I would say seek out veterans who are out there, who have already successfully made the transition a few years down the road. Those are the ones that are going to have a lot more answers for you than the ones who just got out. Because really that transition process, it takes a while. I would say it took me the full 2 years, which just happened last December, to feel like I'm fully transitioned and I have all the tools and I've kind of fully taken off the uniform and pushed away from leaning on the military for help. I would also say is use up all your leave. Don't sell it back, because that paltry sum that you're gonna make because you're worried about not getting a paycheck. Time is the most precious commodity we have, and you're never gonna get that leave time back again. So use it. Go spend time with your family. Go take that vacation that you've been planning, or simply do nothing.
But just use the time.
But use the time, for sure.
Is it easy to find organizations for veterans if you're not in the San Diego area, if you're not in the Virginia Beach area? Are there a lot out there that people could reach out to find their tribe again?
You know what? I'm fortunate that I do still live in a military veteran heavy town, but I don't think there are enough organizations across the country to really reach all the veterans out there. I just had a veteran fellow that was coming from the East Coast, where he served in special warfare, now lives in Arizona, who came to me because he just simply said, "I'm lost. I don't know what to do." So now I'm helping him out. He was a former EOD guy, and I'm trying to get him into the Honor Foundation program, even if it's the virtual one. But there are a lot more veteran organizations popping up, across the country. And, I think that there are a lot more resources out there than there were before. So, I really encourage you to reach out to me, and not just to me, but, look across the country at the different programs and find out what's going to help you the most.
Well, something you just said that really stuck out is you also offer a virtual program. So if you're not locale-wise close enough, you can go through an online aspect.
Yes, absolutely. You don't get a watered-down version. It's going to be, the same 12-week course. It's just that you don't get the live connection, which is the part that I really love about coming here. Even coming back as alumni, I came back on 2 of the biggest nights that happened within that first 3 weeks. It's story night, and all the fellows one by one have to come up on this Honor Foundation mat in front of all their peers, family, guests, and tell their story. And it's not a PowerPoint brief. It's something very personal. So it's a difficult thing. And, you see and hear a lot of different stories and different emotions that night.
How can people get in touch with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find, Jason Goyanko. If you look up Swim for SOF, I'm all over that. I'm pretty easy to find. And if you're a veteran out there and you're lost in trying to find your tribe, please get in contact with me, and I'll see if I can help you out. If not, I'll point you in the right direction.
I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Paul.
I appreciate you watching. But before you go, if you like the video, please hit that subscribe button. Also, any comments are appreciated. Thank you.